My guest is Tim Sabean, great old friend, radio media guy. Tim, did you recognize that song?
I did not hear it.
You've been gone from Minnesota for too long. That was the Minnesota fight song, or maybe you didn't.
Oh my God, yeah, my alma mater.
Yeah, I just thought but I don't know why they didn't put the lyrics on the song. Usually they have whatever the lyrics are, go you gophers, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Eyes you gophers. I don't know.
Whoever
anyway, I'm talking to Tim Sabean. So Tim and I met because I had done the show Son of the Beach with Howard Stern, and Tim was working at Sirius running the Howard Stern channels at Sirius, which I want to talk about. But one of the things, as much as like I got into Howard World through Son of the Beach, all Tim said, which I really loved about meeting him, all Tim loved was my previous show, Nightstand with Dick Dietrich. That's all he ever wanted to talk about. Of it, meanwhile, Howard's like, yeah, I did another show with him, but Tim wanted to talk about Nightstand with Dick Dietrich. Anyway, so how did you get to, I think I know how, but because I think we got to Howard through the same person. How did you find your way to Howard Stern?
Well, I met Howard for the very first time when I was at WNBC with pig virus. And I was in the office and Howard walked in, and I'm just a fan of talent. I just love talented people. I'm fascinated by them because I was around it all my life, and I always wanted to be like them, but I never had that instinct in me, but I appreciated it. It was like artwork to me. And I met Howard for the very first time. And I really didn't understand the show. I listened to it, and I heard bursts of brilliance and with him and so forth. But I had opportunities when I was at WLS to, I hired Jonathan Brandmeier. I worked with Steve Dahl and Gary Meyer. I worked with just the biggest names in the business, Kevin Matthews, you name it. I had the chance to work with him. And then I got hired at Infinity Broadcasting with Howard was the morning guy at both K-Rock in New York and WYSP in Philadelphia, and got to work with Howard and really
that was Mel Karmazin then who brought you to New York.
That's correct. That is correct. And one of the greatest opportunities of my life. And everybody was afraid to death of Mel because he was such a tough taskmaster. And I just loved him. I love that man. And one of the greatest all-time leaders in the business. I would work for him 1,000 times over again. And he was the only one tough enough that could tame me. And he was the guy that really taught me, and I revered him, and to this day. So and I worked hard for him because I wanted to earn his trust and his belief in my abilities. So he was the guy that brought me into Infinity. And then Howard and I took WYSP to #1 in the market, which was a feat.
Yes. I grew up listening to that.
Yeah, it was something that nobody's done with a classic rock radio station. I tied it all together, and where it made sense. It was Howard Stern mornings in classic rock all day, and we did it right. And then we acquired the Philadelphia Eagles and put that on. So we had a juggernaut of a radio station. We went to #1 in the market, and then Mel came down and said, "Would you, be interested in running K-Rock at the same time?" I says, "Well." He says, "Can you do it?" I says, "Well, you do 21 stations. I can at least do 2. So I did 2 stations. I did both WYSP and K-Rock. I would, bounce back and forth between the 2 markets. And then they gave me more and all that kind of thing. But my office was right next to Howard's. And I developed a relationship with Howard. And I was just in awe of working with him and just watching him, what he did and how he did it. And he's just a very interesting, talented human being.
I got to say, one of my favorite, and I don't know how many times I was on the show, but watching him work was one of the great experiences of my life, because the guy is so dialed in. At least this is more, it's become more of a podcast now, which is fine. It's great. But back then there were so many things going on, jokes and he was it was like a genius working a synthesizer, except they were 8 controls of radio, and he's reading things and talking at the same time and taking jokes from Jackie. It was really just a great experience watching him.
He was masterful at it, absolutely masterful. And one of the things that I really think that prepped him was the fact that he was a puppeteer when he was a kid. You know, he was putting on shows seriously, and those types of fundamentals, you know, showed him that how to do that. So he's working
Yes.
multiple and that kind of thing. But also his mind is if he would never perform anything unless he felt it. We would pitch him ideas or have meetings with him, and if he didn't feel it, he wouldn't perform it. And that was a true artist. And I learned a lot by just watching him, pick what he did, or, deciding how he was going to go with something or how he rolls things out. Very strategic. And he had a sixth sense about him that other people didn't have. And he also understood the business of it and had an appreciation for the business, even though he didn't run the business, but he understood that people that really had a sensibility about it. And he picked me to do that because I did have a sensitivity. I worked with talent. I understood, how to treat and how to work and all those kinds of things. And I appreciated it and respected it. So very, very blessed to have that opportunity.
So were you there like 12 years, at least 10 years?
I worked with Howard for 26 years, 26 years. Yeah. We were there.
Here's a question. It's hard to pin down, but like, is there in all of Howard's world, is there a character? Because I was thinking about this today. Another great thing Tim Sabean did for me was I always wanted to go to the Friars Club in New York, and Tim Sabean and took me to dinner and Red Peters was there that night. Of those of you in Howard Stern world, Red Peters used to be on more than now, but Red Peters writes these really funny songs. They're too dirty for this show, but they're really, really funny. Go to YouTube and watch some Red Peters. But we went to dinner there. And, but so looking back at all the characters that came through Stern World, who are some of your favorites? Or
oh my God, it spanned the from all the way from Donald Trump to Beetlejuice and everything in between. It was just what an opportunity. And one of the greatest things was for me is that we would all get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning and be front and center at our desks at 5 o'clock in the morning. And like a military, it was like like a drill team. And but at night, I would go out because Howard was home in bed, and I had the opportunity to go out with a lot of the guests and got to develop relationships like you and I did. It was like George Takei or what's, oh God, it goes on and on and on, but it was just such an amazing opportunity that I had, and I got to build up my contact list that I can get pretty much in touch with anybody or anyone in the business because of my experience at the Howard World. And I took the time to get to know people as people, and I became pretty much like the concierge for everybody. When they'd come to town, they'd ask me, hey, Tim, can you get me into this restaurant, or can you help me with this, or whatever, whether it was Rosie O'Donnell or it was, it was just one of the best, greatest opportunities of my life. So, just extremely, extremely grateful.
Yeah. Again, when I think of all the characters he's picked up over the years, and Tim got me together with Shuli Agar, who's been on this show, and we're doing some stuff together. We're going to talk a little bit about this product that Tim is working with in our fourth segment, the final segment. But we got a crazy one coming up next. But I just think of all the characters that came through there from Crackhead Bob to High Pitched Eric, and I kept thinking, like, how did you manage them?
Well, it was a combination of things. I remember one time when one of my favorites was David Brenner. There was a guy there that, oh my God, he was just so soulful, and just what great stories about his personal life and the trials and tribulations of the opportunities that he passed up with, the Tonight Show, and he was the designated, fill-in for Johnny, and just how he passed it up because he chose his son and his family over that. And it was like those types of stories just touched my heart. Or Will from the David Letterman show and the band. I forget his last name right now, but he had that band, the Fab Four, and they were just incredible in getting to know him or getting to. I mean, there was just so many people
every day there was just somebody new.
Just
and it was 5 days a week. You know, it was just like.
Richard Simmons, when Howard would piss him off, they asked me, I remember Howard says, would you go get him? He's, he ran out of here. So I followed him down the elevator, and he's in the corner, cowering and crying and carrying on. And people are coming in the elevator that worked in the building at 49th and 6th. I'm like, Richard, come on back. Come, he was just having fun, no, he's crying. I'm like, oh my God. I said, they can't believe this. Or Paul McCartney, when he walked in the building, he walks into the front door and there's 300 people out on the street, waiting to see Paul McCartney. And I said, Paul, you can't walk out the front door. So I said, give me the name of your driver. So we spent the morning together, walking him around the building and so forth, and taking him down the freight elevator. I got his car inside the building so I could get him in the car, so no one would see him. But I got to spend time with him and talk to him about the first time I met him when I was 8 years old in Minneapolis, when he performed in 1965. And, those are the kinds of moments that I had. And the people like Bill Porcelli, one of his people that worked with him for 20 some years. I mean, deep, trustful relationships with people. And like yourself, it's just, we did things together. It was a community that you worked together. Andrew Dice Clay or whoever it may be. Gilbert Gottfried.
We got to check. Yeah, they're Gilbert, who was on Son of the Beach. But I'm also thinking, like, my mind's going back to, like, there would be times at the Stern Show where Paul McCartney's on, but Beetlejuice is also on. So the combination of, like, you got Paul and Beetlejuice in the same room, the same green room, waiting to go on. That to me sums up the Howard Stern Show.
It was a circus. Yeah.
Yes, but a wonderful place. Okay, we're going to take another break, and then we're going to take a right turn that I've never done before on this show. But Tim and I share something, which we're going to talk about, not in a crazy way, but we're going to talk about it because it seems to be back in the news. Anyway, I'm talking to Tim Sabean. You're listening to It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack.